Oh, we are so back. It has been far too long, people. It has been far too long. And it's been since last Wednesday. We had to go 5 whole days without spending time with you guys. But we are so back. Garrett Price here, hosting with my co-host over here, Taylor Christensen. Taylor, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. I know that starting my Mondays with this show is definitely an improvement. I used to look forward to the middle of the week because that's when the exciting stuff happened in my life. But having this at the midday point of the first day of the week really just gets me going. I'm excited to be here. I know seeing Pete always puts me in a good mood as well. How are you doing today, Pete?
Good. Doing good. You
Great.
know, it's a rainy day outside, but I enjoy these. I think we kind of might have got microphone stuff figured out, so I'm living life over here.
Great.
Nice. So, yes, if you're not familiar with the show, here's how it works. We go through, we answer some questions. Sometimes we'll pull some questions from the chat, but our main focus is over rescuing your roster. So you can scan the QR code above there on the little corner of the show. Scan that code. We then say, hey, here's your options. You can either ask us a trade question. We can look at your entire roster and we can tell you what direction it's headed, some moves you should make, how it's looking against other teams in your league. Or you can always hit the nuke button, which says, look, I don't care what the heck you guys are doing right now. You guys need to answer this question right now. And so we can do that as well. So go ahead and scan that code. But first, we wanted to start off today. We've started like every show with a nuke button so far. And we haven't had a nuke button today. So we were like, all right, let's keep it a little more low key. We'll do a slower start instead of sirens and craziness today. Let's start with a trade question from the chat. So Cowboy Bob over here, Bob, says, I've decided to trade the 101. What should my minimum asking price be? 12-team, Superflex, tight end premium. So Taylor, you have the 101. What is the least you would take in order to get to give somebody else that 101, which we assume is Ashton Genty? Maybe you can shed some light on that as well. But what's the least you would take?
I want to thank Cowboy B-Bob for giving us this question. If that's how you pronounce it, I'm a nerd, so I can appreciate the reference. But if not, Cowboy B-Bob, I think the lowest I'm willing to get, for giving up the 101 is still an elite tier running back plus a first. That's where I'm at. So if I can get Jonathan Taylor and a 26 first, I'll give up the 101. Now, the person with Jonathan Taylor might not be looking to make that kind of a deal. They might be the type of manager that's looking to get an elite running back because they don't have one already. In that event, I would still want to get a solid first, second season wide receiver and a serious plus on top of that. So can I get, by serious plus, I mean a starter back. So can I get James Conner and Ladd McConkey for the 101? That's a deal I might be willing to make because I feel like Ladd long-term gives me an asset and I can still compete with Conner. I would actually want more than that. Now that I'm saying like Ladd and Conner would get me to the table with someone, but I think I'd still be wanting like the 202 or something in a deal like that because you need a home run when you're giving up the 101 because as we've seen in the past, the hit rate is just so good that you almost can't miss by taking the consensus 101 every year. So to give that up, I need to get, can I get Malik Neighbors for the 101? That's where I'm at. I basically need that 2-3 turn startup pick player at a minimum. How about you, Garrett?
No, I think that's fair. By the way, in just the past few minutes, I've seen like 3 or 4 different people because it tells us when that code is scanned there, that QR code. So I've seen a bunch of people. So if you want to get in a roster review, this is the day to do it, because other days we've had to push it to other shows. We actually have a window here where you can still get live on the show today. So all in one fell swoop without having to use the nuke button. So I would say if you want to get your roster rescued, today is the day to jump in on it. But going back to this question, I'm in a similar wavelength. Only I think my minimum point is even a tiny bit higher. Like with me, if I am giving the most exciting, most talked about prospect that we've had at running back, other than Bijan Robinson, since I guess 2000, maybe even all the way back to 2017. This is probably the most talked about, the most excited we've been for the top running back in this class, other than Bijan Robinson. So in that case, like we've seen Bijan work out great. So with that kind of helps the amount that you should be getting in return for a guy like this. So I am asking a lot. Like let's say let's go back to the Jonathan Taylor. If it's if you're getting Jonathan Taylor in 26 first, that first better be like expected to be top 3 or 4, because I need it to be like a sweet extra just for me to really even consider it. Because at this point, I think he is such a hyped prospect. Is it deserving? We'll find out. But the results almost don't even matter at this point. It's what is everybody valuing him at? And the least I'm willing to take is market value plus a little bit, but I am looking to get a king's ransom. Like, I'm not just getting off the 101. So I would probably be like, if it were me, I would be like, okay, give me the 103. Give me JSN. Like, give me the 103 and JSN. Like, I want an elite player and still an opportunity to get a top tier guy in this class. Like, I'm not like, and that might not get it done, and that's fine. I'm just making sure that you have to pay up to get him, because I am not giving him away cheap.
I think the most important thing is knowing your league and making sure you maximize what's there for you to get. So we can say, hey, I wish, man, if they could sponsor us, maybe we could meet Devontae Adams.
Not a sponsor yet, but Taco Bell, you should be. I do love your food and beverages.
Also love food and beverage. But what you need to do is make this public. Let everyone know. Say the 101 is on the block. Don't just put it on the trade block. Like, literally say in chat at all, if this is on your sleeper, at all, the 101 is available. Who wants him? I'll be taking offers between now and being on the clock. If it's good enough, I'll do the deal early. Otherwise, I'll take the best thing I get on draft day. And that puts everyone for the next couple of months, or not months, weeks, on the same page. They know if they want him, they got to come get him. If they're going to send an offer, they're probably up against 3 or 4, and you're not in a rush to hit accept. So that's how I would make that trade and hope that it's good. See, I'm telling you, I don't have it with me. My computer mat that I put my mouse and everything on, it's currently in the wash because it's a Cowboy Bebop one. So
there we go.
You wash your mouse pad?
You do when your 4-year-old spills your coffee on.
Oh.
Yep, you do.
That makes sense. That checks out. Okay, let's get to the first roster rescue, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is from Jordan. Let me get this up here.
All right. Jordan, this is a PPR league, 4-point for passing touchdowns. Rookie draft won't be till the week before the regular season starts. So they wait a long time for their rookie draft. Do you guys think I should try and move away from Kyler or no? So let's go in to his team here. This is a PPR league. Looks like it's also super flex. Doesn't say that. Wait, do we have the right one here?
So
David.
we just ran into a little bit of a hiccup.
Okay.
So this is Cole's team.
Well, this is Cole's. Okay.
And we actually got the league name off. It is Nearly Divorced Dynasty. This is the
Okay.
league. And the scoring. Do I have Jordan under here? Yes. So we're going to switch it to Cole.
Okay.
And now it should all work out. I
All
think
right,
we're all good now.
Jordan, we are going to get to yours.
Yes.
But we're going to get to it after we get to Cole's. And Cole,
Whoops.
he is 0.75 PPR for tight ends, half point PPR for everybody else. This is a 1 quarterback league. So let's take a look at this team. Right now, this team is currently in 9th in dynasty mode. Contender mode, what are we at, Pete?
Last.
We are in last in contender mode. So this should make it pretty easy. Let's go back to our dynasty screen here. And we've got starting quarterback-wise, Geno Smith, and then no other starting quarterbacks.
Hey, Will Levis. It could be.
We've got Geno Smith and no other starting quarterbacks. We've got Chase Brown, Travis Etienne, and Tyler Algier. Wide receivers, we have Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams, Keon Coleman, Cortland Sutton. And then tight ends, we have Dalton Kincaid, Dallas Goedert, and Juwan Johnson. Picks-wise, we are at 107 and 108, along with the 204 and the 309. So, all of that being said, this one is pretty clear for me, Cole. Right now, your team is just not at a spot where it can compete, but it unfortunately is also in a spot where it doesn't have a ton of assets. And so that's what's going to make this a little bit tricky. When we look at quarterback-wise, Josh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. When we look quarterback-wise, you're not getting anything for Geno in a 1-quarterback league, so you can try, but I don't think you're going to get much of anything. So running back-wise, though, there is some excitement around Chase Brown, and there are still Travis Etienne truthers. I think those guys have to be off your roster before the NFL draft because there is a very real chance that between NFL draft time and now, both, at least one, if not both of those guys, have another running back in the mix for touches. And that is going to muddy the waters quite a bit. I'm not saying they lose all value. I'm not saying they get trumped for carries and touches, but I think at the very minimum, both of them have somebody else in the mix. So, yes, I know you don't typically want to trade players in the offseason as much because you're not getting as much value, but you have to kind of save their value before the draft. So, I am moving both of those players ASAP. And then, honestly, the hard part about a lot of your receivers, specifically Rice and Waddle, are both of those are kind of depressed assets at the moment. So you might not be getting quite as much from them now as you will be other times. So I'm throwing every player out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm throwing every player out there. I just don't know that you're going to get as much value for them in this time that you might at other points. Production picks back up. But I think Devonta Smith is one that I'm like strategically looking at. How can I move him? What kind of value can I get for him? I'm fine moving Jameson. I almost feel like I need to move Cortland Sutton. Like it's basically rip off the Band-Aid, get as many future assets as you can. I'll trade tight ends if I need to. You're probably not getting much for any of them right now, but Taylor, is it that cut and dry, or am I making it too simplistic?
Oh, I have the same assessment you do. That you got to tear it down, and this is definitely more of a touch and go trading situation where I think you have to really figure out which managers are going to maximize the value for your players. So you don't have someone who's in demand necessarily by the whole league, but there's probably some believers in each one of these guys. So to your point about the receivers, Garrett, we'll jump in there. Rashee Rice, Jalen Waddle, I agree that you're going to have a good opportunity to sell them down the road, but you probably do have to wait until people see it again with them. So you'll be selling after they've had good weeks. Whereas I think Cortland Sutton, Keon Coleman, even Jamison Williams, these players where their value might drop during the season, especially if they have slow starts, I think I would just pull out a notebook. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I would use a notebook or a notes sheet on your computer and put what you believe are the best draft pick selections you would take for those players. So Keon Coleman, I would take, maybe as low as the 208 this year if I was moving him, if that's where you're at with it. And then during the draft, just start sending those offers as it gets closer to that time. Starting with the 202, send someone an offer with Keon Coleman and a future fourth. Then 203, send Keon Coleman and something. Like, just work your way through the draft with your players that you can without trying to force yourself into the 2025 picks. But know that most of these guys definitely should have like the 3-week window is what I'm looking at. Within the first 3 weeks of the season, if their value is not, for some reason, hasn't changed drastically for the worse, you need to move them because this team needs to get rid of points. You cannot go into week 5, 6, 7 with 3 wins. That's going to be the worst case scenario for this roster. I think you need to shed as much of these points as you can, whether it's after the draft, with the players that didn't lose their spots. Garrett already mentioned you got to get your running backs out the way. I think we should look at the quarterbacks, though, because I don't know how you rebuild with the 107, 108 this year and Geno Smith without making a move for – you got to get rid of Geno because he's going to get you points. And I don't think that the 107, even if you get Shadur there, that's only one quarterback. So if you tank and get the first overall quarterback next year, 101, that'd be great. But I think you need to use some of these moves, whether it's the receivers or draft picks, to pick a quarterback target and go get him, whether that's Drake May or Bo Nix, Justin Herbert. I don't know your thoughts there, Garrett, but I really would feel better if I had a quarterback to build around.
Yeah, I would be fine building around a quarterback if the right time presented itself, but I probably would wait until next offseason to look into that. Just because you mentioned it before, Geno Smith, like, I don't want the points. Like, I just don't want anybody scoring points because I know I'm in full rebuild next year. So I would probably wait until next offseason and then try to go target a quarterback. Or, you can always draft somebody with the 2-4, because in a 1 QB, Cam Ward might be there at the 2-4 or something like that. So that would probably be the route that I would go personally. Pete, real quick, just to kind of throw out some trade ideas here. Click on some of those top 2 teams. I'm looking at team number 4 specifically. What picks do they have?
They have 102, 110, 111.
They have an extra 26 first as well.
Yep.
Just so you know, this is a super flex. The original league we had pulled up was only one quarterback, but this league is a super flex league.
Oh, good call out. Yep, seeing those numbers there.
So
we're in a
tough
tough spot then.
Yeah, and I saw this team as well. So this team has, maybe you take a swing on JJ or something, but
yep.
Yeah.
Penix, JJ, I think are both guys you could take a swing on. If you wanted to try to get a guy on the cheap, you could try to see if like a third will get it done for Joe Milton, just as like an upside play, because apparently people are excited about him and aren't used to seeing athletic quarterbacks that have one good game. I don't know. But just in case the team gets excited about him, whatever. But yeah, this is a team I think that would be a potential good fit for you because they have a pretty good squad outside of the running backs. They really could use some running back help. So I could see a Chase Brown or a Travis Etienne being a very alluring piece for them. And you could get a pick this year, but I would be more targeting his 26 picks, kind of trying to encourage him to like, hey, you might be able to win it this year. Whereas, like, looking at the team, it looks like one of those teams that'll probably, even with a Chase Brown or whatever, and the 102, whoever gets at 102, is probably still like a 4th or 5th place team. It doesn't really look like a number 1 team to me, even with the right additions. So, because a lot of his value comes from those extra quarterbacks that he has. So I would be targeting potentially the quarterbacks with it being super flex, or just looking at some of the 26 picks potentially. I think that would be a good fit for your team.
Yeah, I like this person as a trade partner. I would just put in Chase Brown and Travis Etienne and something, and see if you can get JJ McCarthy back, or Penix, which I would expect to pay less for Penix personally. I mean, I know we've seen him in action, but we've got Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, with an offensive-minded coach, and Aaron Jones. Like, we just have, in my opinion, a much better situation, although people are optimistic about Atlanta. It's just, to me, Hawkinson versus Pitts alone is night and day with where they're at in their development. So I think JJ's the better target, and in this model we're using here for dynasty value, because it's an aggregate of all of our experts, it actually currently has Penix above McCarthy. But my own personal take is that I would go after McCarthy in this deal, and I wouldn't be opposed to spending a little more for him, because I think that that's more likely to happen. And they let Daniel Jones go. They had him out in the building, and they let him go. So they must feel really good about McCarthy. So I would go to this manager, offer him pretty much all the points that they want from your team. I wouldn't be selling low on Waddle and Rice, but if you can give them Jameis and Williams and both running backs, if you can give them Geno and both running backs, or whatever you can do to shed points to this person. But then to Garrett's point, if you're going to give them a bunch of good players for this year, don't be trying to get their 26 first for next year, because obviously you're going to be that's going to be a later first. So try to get the first of the other manager, or maybe even shoot for the 110 this year, and then look to move that for a 26 first when you're on the clock plus extra. So there's other ways you can work it, but this is the manager. I'm just going to go to them and say, hey, I'm looking to blow it up. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, what are you interested in? Let me know, and then I can put something together for you, and then see how many players they give you and see what you can get done.
Nice. All right, as we wrap this up, Pete, I know that you had 2 people that just recently submitted for roster reviews. Anything you need to talk to them about?
Only Brad. I sent you an email asking for a little bit more info. I needed a little bit more info from you. So if you hear me right now, check your email. You got an email from me.
You've got mail.
You've got mail. We got a talking point right now.
All right. Let's
Okay,
do it.
ready for this? What? Let's change it back to the main scene, okay? So, what will Jameis Winston, if Jameis Winston is the starting quarterback for the whole year for the Giants?
Okay.
What's the stat line?
Ooh.
Yards, touchdowns,
all
interceptions.
17 games.
All 17 games.
All right. Oh, well, first of all, David, if you scan that QR code, that is your way to submit a roster for a roster review. But all 17 games, I would say 4,400 yards. I would say 31 passing touchdowns and 21 interceptions.
How many pick sixes out of that?
Half.
Half, statistically speaking. No, I mean, I'm with you. I would put him north of 40 touchdowns, just because he's going to sling it. And if he has 21 turnovers, he's going to have to get back into the games. And we're pretending that he's going to play all 17 games. So he's just going to keep slinging it. So I don't know. I'm thinking you're looking at the absolute worst season if you combine Joe Burrow and Joe Flacco, maybe, because you're going to get people just launching it down the field. Maybe 20-something interceptions. It'd be ugly. But you know what I would do? I'd be taking Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson in all of my best ball leagues and any drafts that I was doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. We know that he is super successful for our fantasy wide receivers. We saw that last year with Jerry Jeudy, and it was only part of a season that he had Jameis Winston. You factor in what he did in Tampa Bay. We saw a season where Chris Godwin was wide receiver 2 or 3, whatever it was, back there in 2019, 2018, somewhere in there. And then Mike Evans was also a wide receiver 1 that same year. So we know he is good for fantasy assets. We also know he's going to turn the ball over a whole ton, but it would at least make those games fun. Like, that's the nice part about Jameis Winston is he makes the games enjoyable, whether it's just with his commentary, whether it's with his play, whether it's, it doesn't matter. He makes the games fun. So, yes, absolutely. I hope he gets the entire season as the starting quarterback for any Malik Neighbor and Wan'Dale Robinson and whoever their tight end is shares that I have. Pete, do we want to head to the next roster review or no?
Of course.
Of course we
Let's.
do.
What a stupid
We
question.
doing Jordan this
Garrett.
time?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Nice.
Let me actually get it up.
That's all right. No worries.
Flamingos.
I know we're getting a lot of scans, a lot of people wanting to get their leagues in now.
That's why I said, like, at the beginning when Taylor asked me how I was doing, I was writing an email, and so, like, I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. I'm not just doing good. I was just multitasking, and apparently I don't multitask that well. But
You're doing great.
I barely unitask well, so it's
Ooh.
completely understandable. All right, here we go. We've got Jordan's team here. Jordan's team. And Pete, whenever you get a second, you could change kind of that line there at the bottom of the screen. But
good call.
We've got Jordan's team. It's a PPR. I think this one actually is one quarterback, or is it super? No, it looks like this one's super flex.
It's
All right,
4
so it's
points
PPR.
per pass.
4 points per passing touchdown, but it is a super flex league, full PPR. And this is the one where the rookie draft is not until closer to the season. In fact, a week before the season is when their draft happens. So right now in dynasty mode, this is the number 1 team. Pete's doing a lot. I'm guessing contender mode is also pretty high up there. Oh, okay. You're able to switch. Awesome. Also number 1 in contender mode. Perfect. All right, so we'll head back to dynasty mode. But we have a good situation at quarterback right now. We have 3 legitimate assets in Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, and Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. And then it looks like Russell Wilson will end up with a job, whether it's in Pittsburgh, New York, Cleveland. All reports are saying he's going to be the starter for somebody. We're just not sure who yet. So more than likely 4 starting quarterbacks on this team. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, so both ends of the two-headed monster. Derrick Henry, and then Kareem Hunt. Not a lot after that. Wide receiver-wise, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison Jr., Lad McConkey, Devontae Adams, and then a lot of other guys. Tight end-wise, Trey McBride and Isaiah Likely. As far as the picks go, this team has the 101 and the 107 to go along with 210 and then some real late picks. So all that being said, I'm going to kick it over to Taylor. Taylor, start us off with this one. You got to be feeling pretty good if you're this guy.
Well, I'm feeling much better about this roster than most of the ones that come through here. So I want to first off congratulate you. Great job, Jordan. You're crushing it so far. Obviously, you're first in both contender and dynasty value. But your specific question for us was, what to do with Kyler Murray. And I get where you're coming from. When I'm looking at your roster, you're in first for both. So even though I'm going to be a little bit critical about the structure, you're doing great because you're in first for both. But I actually am a little bit worried about the depth of this roster. I feel like the running back position, we've got both of the Detroit running backs, which is great because if one goes down, we know that production is going to still come back to us in the fantasy side of it. You can start Montgomery as a flex when they're both healthy. It's not an issue at all. But like for us being in first in dynasty and for contender mode, I would have expected us to have a couple more big hitters in the running back or wide receiver group. What I think is happening is our draft capital is really boosting us here because Ashton Genty is going to slot into that running back room. So we're going to cover that one hole pretty well with Genty. I don't really think that we're in trouble in any reason, but we only have 3 backfields. We have Detroit, we have Baltimore, and we have where Genty goes. So to me, when it comes time for bye weeks and stuff like that, we need to have another running back. So asking what to do with Kyler, I think I did get a chance to look over this league a little bit before we started. I think that the manager who has Alvin Kamara is appealing. If we could go to number 11 in the leagues there. So we've got Jared Goff, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, James Conner. And then we even have, this is the Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin manager as well. So you're asking what to do with Kyler. I would love to tear down from Kyler into Jared Goff and one of these running backs or one of these wide receivers and then see if there's a plus to be had elsewhere. You asked what to do with Kyler. I don't know, Garrett, if you're on the same page, but I would prefer to make a deal with this manager with Caleb. I'd rather send away Caleb Williams, given that we're contending, given that we have 3 other viable quarterbacks. Like, can I get more for him in a deal with someone? And would I be better off moving him rather than Kyler? Because just as a refresh, we currently are the Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride manager as well. So right now we have a double stack with Kyler. So if we like that, we would be losing that.
Yeah, I think that manager makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I love the direction you're heading. And I'm even maybe at the point where we might have a rare scenario where in that specific trade, we're trying to get an Alvin Kamara, we're trying to get a Mike Evans, we're trying to get, whatever. I might not need a quarterback back. That's rarefied air. That doesn't happen very often. But with you having 4 starters at the moment, you might not need one. Now, what I will say is I'm probably going to the Matt Stafford guy. I'm probably going to the Geno Smith guy. Since Russell Wilson is a little bit iffy and up in the air, I am probably in an additional deal later trying to get one more guy just to kind of buoy my third quarterback with another guy. But that being said, I think if you were to trade either Kyler or Caleb, I'm fine with either one. And you were able to get yourself, let's go ahead and, Pete, let's go back to that team number 11 there. If you were able to get Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara, and you might even be able to also get Terry McLaurin. You might be able to get all 3 of those guys. Or maybe you say Christian McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans. Or, yeah, because I think receiver is the one where you really probably need a little bit more depth.
We do.
Yeah. You only have 4 guys there. So, yeah, I might rather get the 2 receivers and a running back. And honestly, I would say your choice between Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara, I'm fine with either one. If I can turn Kyler into those 3 or Caleb into those 3 and maybe even a little plus, because does that guy at 11 have does he have some draft capital maybe or something, like something small to be able to throw in on top?
203.
Yeah, maybe like that, all that in 203 for a Caleb Williams. Like, I think that's the direction that I would really like to go in order to try to help give myself another chance to win it this year.
So I want to offer one other direction here, Garrett, because I think we are at the point where we're pushing our chips in. We expect to win this year, or we expect to be in the championship. So why don't we jump to the 4th team there, Pete? Now, we've got a manager with Lamar Jackson and no depth. Should we think about packaging Caleb and Kyler and making them an offer for Lamar, and they have the 111, They've got James Cook. They've got, I guess those would be the two I would most be interested in, a 26 first maybe. I don't know if they would want to do that. But the overall idea is should we package and try to get an elite guy to go with Baker, Russ, maybe Levis gets a couple starts here or there, or you can always pick up a Stafford type when you need to. But I may be going to this person because they could use two real quarterbacks, and I would be happy to put Lamar Jackson on a team with Derrick Henry, Ashton Genty, Jahmyr Gibbs, and the like. So what do you think about going another direction with the quarterback room?
The hard part for me is if we go this direction, now we lose that depth at the other positions because we're not able to make that trade to get some extra receivers and extra running back. So that's the hard part for me. The second part where I would have a little bit of a trouble with it is I have a hard time trading for guys that just this year hit their career peak. Like, that's a really tough time to trade for a player. So while I will absolutely love to have Lamar on my team, don't get me wrong, this team doesn't feel like a team that has the kind of depth at the other positions that can afford me to tier up to this kind of guy, where I feel like we need to add another receiver, another running back to this group, and hope we see either Caleb, Kyler, or Baker, or hopefully two of those three, kind of have a little bit more of an ascension. Baker's super undervalued, so he's not the guy that I would move. He's just always putting up points, and still nobody really likes him, so I don't think he's the one that would move. But I would be leaning toward our first deal more than this personally for me.
So I have a Isaiah Likely-o-meter for you guys. Chances in 3 years, Caleb Williams will have a higher dynasty value than Lamar Jackson.
I would say I would put this, so quarterback, quarter points, I'm going to give it a 6.25. I think it's more likely than not that Caleb has a higher value than Lamar within the next 3 years.
We don't disagree that often. I like when it happens because it gives me a
All
chance
right, let's hear it.
reassess.
I'm just putting you guys up on the board.
We're being honest. We've got a two-time MVP guy in Lamar, and we've got a guy who takes sacks at a rate that's. I don't believe that Caleb Williams at this point has the potential to be a top 4 dynasty quarterback. I don't think his production is going to get there. We'll see. I can totally be wrong. But that's why I'm only going to give this a 1.25 chance that Caleb Williams.
Whoa.
You guys, I'm totally out on that.
Chat, who's crazy? Who's crazy here, chat?
Lamar Jackson, worst case scenario, is still a top 10 dynasty quarterback 3 years from now. Why is he going to drop off? We've seen his passing continue to improve. We've seen their team continue to give him offensive playmakers. They just went out and got another one. I have no reason to believe that with his coaching situation and his play style that he's likely to decline at a pace that's faster than anyone else. He runs, but he doesn't run crazy. He's smart about it. He gets down. I'm all in on Lamar to the point where I think he's more likely to still be a top 3 fantasy quarterback in 3 years than it is that Caleb Williams would be worth more than him in 3 years.
Are you a Ravens fan?
No, I don't have a fandom. I just
Okay.
What can I don't know for a fact because I'm colorblind, but what color is the shirt that Taylor's wearing right now?
It's blue.
Oh. What color are the Ravens? That's purple, right?
Purple. Yeah.
Okay. No, we got away this time.
So here's the thing.
So is he your quarterback 3, or do you have James Daniels ahead of him?
You just took him 1-1 over Daniels and Josh Allen, so I know that's his top guy.
In that scoring, it is. There's negative points for sacks taken, and there's points for rushing first downs. So there's a reason in that format. But yes, to answer your question, Pete, he's my second overall quarterback. Josh Allen,
Okay.
Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, given all the dynasty value that he has. But I would still want to see it again with Daniels before I'm going to count him as a productive top 3 fantasy.
So here's where I'm going to parse this a little bit. The question that was asked was not who has a better season in 3 years. The question asked was who has more dynasty value in 3 years. And I think those are two very different things. Do I think necessarily that Caleb Williams will be scoring more points in the year 2027 season or 2028 season than Lamar? I don't necessarily know. I think it'll be close, but I don't necessarily know. But what I will say is when you have a guy that will be 31 years old versus a guy that's 25 years old, my guess is the dynasty value of a Caleb Williams on a Ben Johnson offense that's invested in that offensive line, that has those receiving weapons, they're going to be pretty close in points, I think, by that time. And then you add on the 6 years. That's why I said I think it is more likely than not that Caleb Williams is the more valuable asset. So that's part of it. Like, and maybe we were thinking of the question a little bit differently, or maybe not. Maybe it really is. We're thinking of it the same way. We just feel that differently about Caleb Williams, because I think this is probably more about Caleb Williams than it is about Lamar, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. I think he's more likely to be Trevor Lawrence than he is to be a true high-end dynasty asset, is maybe the way that I can summarize it. So I think Caleb Williams has more potential to end up in the Trevor Lawrence side of things 3 years from now than he does to be in like the Jordan Love ascending trajectory.
I think there's a decent chance that he's in like the Joe Burrow range in 3 years.
Okay. Well, there you go, chat.
The major thing that I would say against Caleb Williams is that it's the Bears.
It's true. This will be a big year. If he doesn't do well this year, his dynasty value could really drop, because how's it going to get much better than this, especially if they take Genty?
That would be awesome. Okay. Any other thoughts on the man? We need to find more things that you guys disagree on. I love that. Any more thoughts on flamingos?
Hopefully we're not disagreeing all the time, because then it just turns into like a Stephen A. Smith show.
Oh yeah, no one listens to that.
Hopefully, I mean, it is funny because lots of people listen to it, but they all complain about it, so it's kind of funny. But that being said, I hope we agree 80 to 85% of the time. But it is good to have some healthy disagreement and debate. So all that being said, to come back to this, I would not be trading up with the current roster I have for Lamar Jackson. I don't think I would do that.
Final thoughts on this, Garrett, I think, for this specific question. Yes, if he should move Kyler or not. I think it sounds like we're in agreement that he should move a quarterback. Would you prefer to move Kyler over Caleb, or given the choice, would you rather shop Caleb?
I would rather whatever one is going to net me the best value, honestly. Yep. Like that. Okay. That's more what I care about here, and best value relative to how the market sees them. Obviously, Caleb is going to fetch you more value right now, but are you getting market value for Caleb but below market value for Kyler? Well, then I want to trade Caleb. Am I getting above market value for Kyler but still just market value for Caleb? Then I'd rather trade Kyler. So I think it's just relative to what the market says. Who am I getting the best value on?
Perfect.
Okay. We got another talking point.
Okay.
So what sophomore quarterback do you think has the highest chance of having a slump this season? Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Drake May, Michael Penix. Would you rather have J.J. McCarthy over any of them? So two questions, but
this is a tough question. I would say overall, if I had to pick one, and it's funny because this is probably a player that I am the highest on versus consensus. So it's interesting that I'm picking this player.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Is it Drake May?
It's Drake May. I love Drake May. I think what Drake May did this past season was fantastic with no help around him. But I think if he has a season, some Cowboy Bob, that's what I'm talking about, my guy. If he has a season, let's say he has a season relatively similar to this season, I think everybody would call that a disappointment. But I don't know that the situation is going to be that much drastically better in 2025 than it was in 2024. So even though I don't think he's going to have a worse season, I don't know that he's going to skyrocket to the level that I and others would like him to. So I think because of that, relatively speaking, I think that would be a disappointment for a lot of people. And so I think he would probably be the one that would have a slump season.
My answer would be Penix, just because I think that people are giving him expectations at this point that could be unfair. We saw what Cousins did. We saw what Penix did right near the end. I think everyone's assuming that the best of Penix is going to continue from the start of this season and that he's going to grow even further, which totally he could. But it's also just as likely that he has a true rookie season and struggles throughout the season to kind of grasp the different things that are going on, and he gels with his teammates on the field instead of at practice and what have you. So I think I would rather bet on those other guys than Penix to just have a better season. But the one that is probably my favorite, like, I think I would prefer McCarthy over Penix. Like I said earlier, you know, the difference between the Vikings and the Falcons would probably be enough for me, and letting not bringing back Darnold, not having Daniel Jones around as a distraction, like, I think they're all in on McCarthy. So I would actually prefer to have McCarthy over Penix, just even just dynasty straight up, I think.
Here's the one thing to that I will say, because I think it's close. I think most people would agree with you, McCarthy over Penix. I would probably be closer to the Penix over McCarthy camp. One, because we've seen at least a little bit of it. Not enough to get a true sample size, but at least knowing that, yes, this is in the realm of possibility. But I think the thing that you're leaving out when you're talking about how good the core of the Vikings is, and it's a great offensive mind, it's a great receiving core, is the reliance that will be put on the passing game for JJ McCarthy versus the not needed reliance on the passing game as much for the Falcons, because they have an all-world running back. That takes a lot of pressure off of Michael Penix, and they can win other ways. So he doesn't have to be elite for them to be good. The Vikings quarterback, whoever it is, has to be fairly elite for them to be good, because they're not going to be able to run the ball like the Falcons are. And so I think that's the tricky part about the J.J. McCarthy situation is, now, if he can live up to that, he's going to have tons of volume and he's going to ball out. So that's where that ceiling is really exciting for a McCarthy. But I do think you have a little bit of a riskier floor in that sense, because he has to win it, which we didn't see him have to do that in at Michigan. We didn't have to see that. You know, they had more like Atlanta. Game dominates things, and then we get some big plays off play action and things like that. McCarthy, the offense is going to run through McCarthy, and then the running game is complementary to that. So that would be my only slight caveat to that.
Oh, it sounds like you guys are disagreeing again.
You said to do it, you know, it's driving up numbers.
I think McCarthy and Penix are probably like the closest. Like give me a different day and give me a different team, and I might target one of the others instead. Like those two are very close, I think. So it's a good comparison.
Ooh, we just Mr. Bakes-A-Lot just accused you guys of doubting Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. What do you guys have to say to defend yourselves?
They are not Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. Yeah, I just don't put them in even close to the same tier. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but I don't think anyone would argue, and maybe not, maybe you would, but I don't think most people would argue that offense is running through Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. I think the passing game has always been the focal point, and the running game is secondary and complementary, where it is the opposite in Atlanta. I think that's the biggest thing. At least for the point that I'm making is it's not an anti-Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. I think they're fine. I think they'll be okay for another year or two. But this is more McCarthy's going to have to put the cape on more often than Penix is going to have to.
If the Falcons offense runs through Robinson, that's a good thing. If the Vikings offense runs through Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, that's kind of a bad thing.
Yes.
Okay. So side note, Garrett, we had a question.
Okay.
How again? Number one, how do we send our rosters in? But number two, how do we use the tools that we're using right now?
Yes. So, first of all, there is a QR code in the upper right-hand corner right now. If you scan that right there, that will give you the opportunity to submit your roster for review. So that is the best, easiest way to do it. You can head to the Nerd site, but good luck finding it because I haven't even been able to find the link as to where we've hid that thing. So the best and easiest way to make sure you can get your roster reviewed is to scan that QR code right there. Pete, maybe you can even put the link in the chat as well. Maybe make that a little easy for the folks and they're like, I don't know how to scan a QR code. No, we'll just put the link there. That's fine.
Here you go, Grandpa.
We'll put the link in the chat there as well. But while you're there, you can look at all the tools that we're using. Look, yes, of course, Taylor and I spend tons of time studying this stuff, tons of time talking about this stuff, writing about this stuff, all of that. But one of the things that's really, really nice is the Dynasty Nerds GM does a lot of work for you. It helps very quickly tell you in an unbiased manner, because look, we're all a little biased. In an unbiased manner, that you are the number 1 team in Dynasty, but you're the number 6 team in contender mode, or vice versa. So if you want to be able on your own time to go take a look at that, and look, we love also busting out the mock draft tool in there as well. We'll bust that out soon for one of these, I'm sure. If you go to dynastynerds.com, use promo code Roster Rescue. That's promo code Roster Rescue. It's on the little ticker below. Pete's pointing to it, moving his finger the wrong way. Oh, now it's the correct way. There we go. Roster Rescue. You'll get 15% off. 15% off of your first payment. So whether that's a month or a year, I'd recommend the year. You get more bang for your buck if you're doing that. So 15% off, promo code Roster Rescue.
Do we have a 10-year membership option?
We do not have a decade-long option.
We should really think about that, because that way we could like offer a year off.
Oh.
50-year option, and you can like put it in your will.
Lifetime option.
Yeah.
We will sing you happy birthday
for only $25,000.
Jonathan, that's
you see
true.
Jonathan's comment? This is I've felt this in a deep place in my soul. The problem is if the tool tells me my team sucks, then I'll just be depressed.
So here's the fix to that. So you can make custom rankings.
Hey.
And you can change your player values so your team can all of a sudden be what it truly is, and that is number 1 in your heart.
Yeah, and then you can send that screenshot to your friends like, look, number 1 team. And they're like,
this is why you should accept my trade. Look at this trade calculator.
White. How is your team number 1? Fantastic. All right.
Okay.
Let's get to our next roster review here.
Yep. Okay. This one is from Joel.
Joel, thanks for tuning in, my guy. Thanks for he scanned it early in the show. I know he did. I remember seeing it come through. All right, so Joel, this is let me make sure I have the talking points here correct. He's won 3 championships after winning 3 games in 2 seasons. I pushed all in and won the ship last year. I just traded CD and Connor for Amon-Ra in the 107. How can I make this roster ride for 3 more seasons since I have no picks? LMAO. All right. So no picks here. But here's what we've got. We have got Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield at quarterback, running back Derrick Henry, Trey Benson, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Wright. And then at wide receiver, go ahead and go down a little bit. We've got Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, Tyreek Hill, a bit of a god squad there at wide receiver. Tight ends, Dalton Kincaid. And then picks-wise, we've got 107 and the 303. However, other than that, Pete, it looks like we don't have any picks until 2027, and that is only a 4th or 5th round. So he is truly all in.
All in, baby.
6th ranked team in Dynasty, but what is he on Contender mode?
Okay, this is when we really have to send good vibes.
Yep.
If you're all in.
Okay, 4th. But it's basically almost exactly the same as the two teams ahead of him. So somewhere between 2nd and 4th, Dynasty mode-wise. But there is one team that is looming large. Let's look at that team. So Josh Allen,
Spencer
Kyler Murray,
Rattler,
Drake May, good old Spence, Bijan Gibbs, Ramondre DeAndre Swift, Tyler Algier, wide receiver Malik Neighbors, T. Higgins, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison Jr., DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Roma Dunze, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, and he's got plenty of picks.
Side note, Des Bryant sighting.
Oh, my goodness. Look at that. Dez caught it. All right. So with that, let's go back to this team. Going back to this team here. I love what you've done, and I love that you want to ship. And so I want to start the conversation off with that. Because at the end of the day, and look, I have a team that is notorious for this, where it gets first place and looks great on paper. It gets first place during the regular season, and I get to the playoffs, and something always seems to happen. And so I'm not going to tell my grandkids one day about how many 2nd and 3rd places I got, but my team had so many good picks, and it was so young and whatever. Like, at the end of the day, it's about how many ships you win. And so you want to ship, and that's important. So that's the first point. Good job.
This is such a hard talk. Because I know everyone knows where you're going, Garrett. And it's just painful, man. But question, really fast. How many years are you willing to sacrifice for a championship?
For Dynasty or for
Dynasty?
Because for the Browns, I would sacrifice every year because we already have. So just give us one. Because I plan to sacrifice all the other years.
No. For Dynasty, like
for Dynasty,
would you take a championship if you are just a first round exit playoff team for 6 years?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got a 6 year rebuild right here.
What he did was worth it.
Yep.
What he did was worth it. Like, you want to ship. It's hard to do when you did it. All right. All of that being said, you're in a tough spot because you do not have future assets. So you have to push all the chips in for the next couple years. With that being said, you cannot afford an injury at quarterback or you're in a bad spot. You do not have a third one. At running back, you really only have one sure thing. And hopefully Dobbins lands with a good spot. But it's tricky. You have a nice wide receiver core. You have a very nice wide receiver core. And then you've got a good tight end. Because you have Trey McBride, right? He's got Trey. What does he have? Oh,
Dalton.
Dalton.
Same thing, right? Same guy.
You wish. I really wish it was.
Most of us
more
do.
Kincaid than I do Trey McBride. And then you've got 107. So we need to make this 107 count because you don't have your pick the next 2 years. You have to win. And you have to win as much as you possibly can. Now, that being said, after this draft class, do not trade your 28 first. You gotta be okay with holding on to it for a while. Do not trade your 28 first. But we've got to make the next couple years count. So, Taylor, if we're going to do our best to make the next couple years count, in my mind, what we've got to do is we've got to make this 107 turn into several 2 to 3 year assets is kind of the way I'm looking at it. Because otherwise, just adding Quinshawn Judkins, just adding Colston Loveland, just adding Luther Burden, whoever it is not going to be enough to topple that team. It's just not. Unless, I mean, look, things can happen. Crazy stuff happens in the playoffs. So I need to make that 107 into several assets. So I'm taking a look at some of these other teams that are not contending right now that would love to get their hands on 107. So like this team here, they've got some wide receiver assets. That would make sense. Go back to dynasty value, Pete. So dynasty value-wise, Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs are very inexpensive assets. Those guys would be nice. The only thing is you're actually not bad at wide receiver. You're in a pretty good spot at the wide receiver position. So I don't really need that as much. So I probably want to take a look at a team, maybe like Team 7. Who does Team 7 have?
Oh, this was the guy that
they just
he
made
did
the
the
trade.
trade for. Yep.
Okay.
Which good trade. I like that trade. It was CD and James Conner for Amon-Ra in the 107. I like that.
I think overall I like the value of it. I think that was good value. The problem is I would love to have a James Conner back on this team. So that's the only tricky part. But I agree overall that the value is spot on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at my team, and I'm trying to see, like, is there a team where I could get some running backs off of them? Take a look at 8 and 9. Let's see. Do they have any running backs?
Check out 2.
Go to
That
2?
team has some.
Check out 2. No, yeah. So they've got Kyron, Kenneth Walker, but if you go down, they also have 105, and they could use a wide receiver. So I feel like we could find something with them between Kenneth Walker, the 105, and them needing maybe Garrett Wilson.
Potentially. Go back to 8 and 9, though, because they did have some interesting guys as well. Like Najee Harris could be a pretty cheap option. Well, his price has gone up since the free agency signing. But he's like the prototypical 2 to 3 year asset that I'm kind of talking about. Where, like, could I get Najee Harris and I don't know, like what's his like a Debo? Could I get Najee Harris and a Debo? Man, you might even be able to get Josh Jacobs, honestly, for 1.7. You might be able to get Josh Jacobs.
Where's he at contender? What's his team? Okay. And then this team is not competing. So they're probably trying to get rid of Najee and Josh and Debo.
So how many starters is this? We're guessing 10.
1, 2, 3.
All the highlighted are guys that are currently in starting spots.
So 10 including quarterbacks and Superflex.
So we have Jalen Warren and we have Jameis Winston. So it's not like we have no one in our backups. We do have another swing at a potential, starting running back. We'll see what Pittsburgh does. And Jameis is at least going to get a few reps, depending on if it's beginning or end of the season. So however they end up drafting Cam Ward, that's my answer, or Shador. But the point is, you have points coming up in these other places. I would want to move one of these wide receivers to tier down into, can I tier down Garrett Wilson and then pick up another starting running back? Like, can I do, we have Tyreek Hill, but normally I'd be looking to do like Jalen Waddle and Kamara, or Jalen Waddle and you already traded away James Conner, but that being the idea. I think we need to split one of these wide receivers to pick up a running back. I'm not sold on George Pickens, but I don't know if we can split him for much. But Garrett, that's my thought, is maybe we keep the 107 till draft day and see who's on the board. Maybe there is a running back there for us and we just take them, or maybe we can get a good maybe we can get a 26 first plus a serious starting veteran player for that pick. But I think we got to be on the clock. What do you think about one of these wide receivers instead?
I would say I'm open to that because you do get great value for your pick assets at draft time. So I have no problem waiting. I don't think you have to make any trades right now. I'm also, and maybe I was looking at something else for a second there, so I might have missed you saying this, but I'm taking a look at Jalen Wright and Trey Benson, even though I like both of those players, and I think both have upside. I would also be willing to trade them for like the 1 year services of whoever to like try to get me through this hump, because could Benson be the truth? Maybe. But as much as I liked him, there's a reason that Connor got a new deal. Like, they like James Conner. So
would you trade Trey Benson straight up for a like an Aaron Jones? Because he's on the 9th ranked team.
I would have no problem with that.
Okay,
Yeah, I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think those are the kind of moves we're making. We're gonna move some of the, like, and especially closer to the draft, the better. Because if you were to move that pick, then you're gonna get the most for it. But guys like Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, they do still hold value to get 1 or 2 year rentals to kind of push you all in for right now. Because Trey Benson more than likely is not helping you this year. Jalen Wright more than likely is not helping you this year. So I need assets that are going to help me this year.
Would you take a risk here and go to Team 9? Would you take a risk and offer them both Benson and Wright and see if they'll give you Pacheco, Robinson, and Jones? Just say, like, hey, I see that you don't really have much. These guys could all lose value. Like, Pacheco and Robinson are both risks to take on at this point. Are you willing to risk taking on these guys if you can get a good price? Like, if you can give up Jalen Wright to get both of those guys for this roster, would you do that before the draft happens?
I mean, why not?
But the upside for Wright is so much higher than a Pacheco or a Robinson. Like, if one of those hit, like, you're not going to win a championship starting Brian Robinson on your team. And I say this as a Commanders fan.
Well, right now, all we have is Derrick Henry and question marks. So we need we don't need them now, but for this team to be truly competing, we will need to add a veteran running back, in my mind, before week 1 or week 2 at the latest, seeing how if Dobbins or Warren has a starting possibility. But like right now, we do not have, in my mind, a starting running back 2. So we need to get one. So even if it's not Robinson or Pacheco or like maybe the Tyrone Tracy manager, like, this is what I'm getting at, is I'm willing to go out and get the discount on these guys and hope that they don't lose their position with this asset. Like, can I trade Trey Benson and Romeo Dobbs, who I don't need, to someone who will give me 2 swings at the apple? Can I get Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne off of someone? Can I just get players that are not sexy right now, but can give me the potential to be real starters in season? Because this is the type of roster where, without future draft picks, you kind of got to buy the bottom barrel guys without giving up your top end assets.
Yeah, Keith, we totally agree. We've talked about this a lot. There's a lot of guys for a lot of teams that we're shipping out before the draft. We just talked about a team with like Travis Etienne and Chase Brown, where we would ship them out ahead of time. The problem with this team is they have no picks moving forward until 2028, basically. So you've got to kind of take some risks on maybe some guys falling through the cracks and holding on to jobs versus guys that are very unlikely to have jobs this year, even if their ceiling is much higher. So I think that's kind of the rub with this specific team, and why I don't necessarily disagree with Taylor on this point. We've disagreed before today, but not on this point as much.
Nick Chubb. Would you go out and try to get Nick Chubb or Ramondre? There's a manager who has both them and DeAndre
Ramondre,
Swift.
I'd be more interested in than Chubb.
Yeah. You can maybe that's what I'm doing here is I'm going out and trying to find the lower tier guys on other people's rosters that they can shed, and I'm trying to get rid of my guys that are not.
Did we
likely
move off
to give
Josh
me points.
Jacobs? Did we move off Josh Jacobs and who's the other guy on that team? I think
So Aaron Jones was one that was brought up. Jacobs and Najee.
Jacobs and Najee. I'm still pursuing that manager heavily. They also have Debo. Like, maybe I can work out one of my receivers as part of a deal as well. So maybe it's not even the 107, but maybe I could work out one of my receivers because they're in a bit of a rebuild.
So they
could I
have our picks.
They have
They
our
have
picks.
all of our picks. Yeah.
So yeah, it might be harder to deal with them, but they kind of know you're going all in anyway, so it might not matter as long as they get young assets. So can you move a Garrett Wilson and get Jacobs, Najee, and Debo? Would that maybe be worth it? Like, I'm not giving up on pursuing a trade with this team. Plus, we know this team is willing to trade.
That's true. I wouldn't give up on this team at all. I would stay in conversations with them. But I guess my thought is maybe I'd try to get my 27 first back in a deal. Like maybe I could get
Just in case.
maybe I could get Josh Jacobs and my 2027 first back for that 107 and a receiver or something. Like I'm talking to this. I'm talking to this manager, and I'm not overpaying at all, but I'm going to try and get that 27 first back throughout the course of this year and the end of the season. Like, I would have that security back because I can see with Derrick Henry not having a locked up RB2 right now, George Pickens and Tyreek Hill both 2 years from now, I'm not sure. So 2027 could be a rough year. So I think I'd want to try get that first back from that manager. I was wondering where it was, and he's got both your 26 and your 27. So,
also, how much are you interested in kind of doing what you were saying, Taylor, with tearing down from Garrett Wilson, but instead with Justin Jefferson? No,
I don't know, Garrett. I'm not moving Justin Jefferson on any of my teams unless someone comes to me with like a King's ransom offer out of the blue. Like I'm not shopping him unless it's like we had one roster, might have been last Wednesday, where we had only 2 assets and he was one of them. Like that's different, but like I'd rather move Amon-Ra than Justin Jefferson.
okay.
Depends on the offer. I mean, if I'm never gonna not listen to a trade. But like Taylor said,
what if you could do this kind of crazy, but like Justin Jefferson for Malik Neighbors and Ramondre? It doesn't sound good.
Ramondre's not enough.
Okay. What would you need? Is that close? Like a 2026 first.
If I got Malik in a 26 first, I might listen to that, depending on where, especially if I could get mine back.
No,
but
that's not.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm the wrong guy to come to about Justin Jefferson, Pete. I'm still sold on him. I think I would hold on to him as like I'm happy to bank my dynasty value into as much Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson as I can.
All right.
Okay. Well,
Are we gonna do? We move into the MFL one.
yeah. So this
right.
one, This
Go
one,
ahead.
it's gonna be a little bit because it's also defense. It's
All right.
defenses.
We'll do our
So
best.
we're gonna pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up on the MFL site first.
Okay.
Because the GM does not do IDP, so we can just see the roster as a whole.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about it. Oh, see you, Taylor.
Taylor's like, I ain't doing that. See ya.
There we go. Okay. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, there we go. Here we go. And we're back. Okay. So
is there
he
any way to
is-
zoom in at all?
yes, there is. We do have. I'm finding his roster first. This is quite the setup we got.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's see. I want to confirm the name.
Yep. Funky Phantom.
Yep.
Funky
Okay.
Phantom. There we go.
Yep.
Yep. There you go.
Okay.
All right. So
Get ready to read.
hold on. Sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
So at the quarterback position, we have Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, Will Levis. Running backs, we have Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Jerome Ford, and that's about it. At the wide receiver position, we have A.J. Brown, we have Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, Jalen Coker we'll put out there. Tight ends, we have Evan Ingram, and this league also has kickers, and then they have defensive players. Now, I'm not going to list all of their defensive players, but I am going to just take a quick second here. It looks like they have invested heavily into the defensive side of the ball, so they have quite a bit of value in their edge players. They've invested in their linebackers as well, and they went well. They even have a little bit of value still in their back end of the secondary. So we can go ahead and scroll back up to the offense, but I think what we're gonna need to keep in mind with this, Garrett, is they've invested more on the defensive side than they have on the offensive side. We have made a decision with this roster to make sure and shore up the IDP side. So I think what we need to do is try and help them as best we can to build up this offensive side, because they're not in a. I mean, they just won.
They've won back to back.
23 and 24. So they're definitely on the right path with what they're doing here, but I can see where they're getting concerned with the way the offense is starting to shape up.
Do we have a rough idea of the defensive scoring? Because I know that's one of the tricky things is typically offense is pretty uniform with like a few like, oh, we're tight end premium or oh, we're less. I know defenses can get a little wonky with like their scoring settings. Do we have any idea on how that works or no?
How do we find the scoring on MFL?
Just go back up to the top for their league.
Okay.
And then go to live scoring is what I would do. And then I would, because it's a new year. I was going to say, if we can see one of their previous weeks, we'll be able to see how it compares to their offenses. But if you wanted to see their actual scoring, you have to go to the top and go to the very top, over to league.
Yep. League rules.
Yeah.
I moved all of my leagues off of MFL. Okay.
Me too.
Yeah. So 4 points, passing touchdown. Go down to the defensive side. Oh, that it's I see. It's just
okay. Yeah, it's for everyone.
They've got. Yeah, Garrett. This is. They're getting as many points on the offensive side as they are on the defense side.
Yeah, so it's pretty
exception. Yeah.
Yeah, sacking a quarterback's 4 points. So yeah, it's pretty level scoring across both offense and defense. So that's a big aspect of this, because that makes sense why they've invested so heavily in defense. Because especially if you are somebody that pays a lot of attention to the defensive side of the football, you are in the minority, because there's a lot of fantasy people, even that play in IDP leagues, that are not spending a lot of time doing that. So if you're able to get the edge defensively, it's That's huge.
That's how you
There's a lot
win
of people going
championships
behind
2 years in a row.
it. Defense wins championships.
Exactly.
So with that, let's go ahead and now we'll take a look back at the offense, knowing that this is one of, if not the best defensive team.
And let's pull up the offense on our GM, shall we?
Love it.
That way
Let's
we
do it.
can see how we're stacking up here.
All right. So did you already read through it, Taylor?
I did. Yep, we read
Right.
through them.
So
It was a suspicious sneezing fit, by the way.
It was.
Oh, I'm about to read this roster of 50 players.
I've read every one ever. You stop it. All right. Kyler Murray. So 1 QB league, he's more than enough. He's not going to be like a game changer, but he's going to be very, very solid for you. No worries there. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard. You feel pretty good about both of those guys. I don't foresee any significant additions via the draft. I guess the Panthers maybe could, but they did last year. So I doubt that they want to invest in the position again. They just gave him a contract. So Chuba, even though he's not a top-tier guy, feels like one of the ones that's a little bit safer for a mid-tier running back. But there's still only 2 guys there. AJ
Are you
Brown
worried about Rico Dowdle at all for the Panthers?
Not really. I think he's going to be involved, but not more than like 6-8 touches a game. I don't
Okay.
think it's going to be a big role that he's taking over.
Okay.
No.
Wide receivers, we've only got the 3 guys, so not a lot there. But you got a nice little bump for Evan Ingram. This was kind of a nice little offseason for him as far as gaining value and potentially scoring a lot more points than I was originally expecting him to on the Jaguars this year. So picks-wise, though, we don't really have any selections in this year. We've got the 216 and then 4th, 5th, and 6th picks. But those we're not expecting to give us any value. So 216, that does throw me off, though. This is how many teams are in this league?
That's what I was
Does it
trying to
scroll?
figure. They must have
Mm-mm.
like some sort of way to earn
Oh,
their picks.
Is it scroll?
homie, it is a what?
Well, no, it looks
It
good.
That'd
says
be a
42 player.
Yeah.
I thought he was saying 42 team. Whew. It's a 12 teamer.
Then
They
how
must
does he have
have-
the 216? I'm very confused by this.
Compensatory picks, maybe. If it's
Maybe.
a defensive league, maybe they do it differently.
Okay.
I don't know.
But either way, knowing that this is one of the better defensive teams, switch it to contender mode real quick. Our offense
Yep.
right now is
Hey.
still one of the better offenses in the league, but it's got to be 16 teams, right? Pete, scroll through the teams on
Yep.
MFL.
I'm counting.
Okay.
Keep on doing your thing.
All right. So, because that is a huge difference. 12 teams. I don't feel amazing about this offense. I feel much better about the offense if this is a 16.
It is 16. It is 16.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know why
So
it's not
just
scrolling
cutting
or
off the
anything.
last 4 teams is what it's
Yeah.
doing right now, which I've not seen it.
Oh,
do
it's
that
16
before.
here too.
Okay. I think
Because
you might
I
have
know
to
in
scroll
mobile,
to the
Yeah.
right and left.
on mobile
Yeah.
you can. I guess right now you can't do it on desktop.
All right. That makes me feel way better about this offense. Knowing that it's this deep. So you've got a top 16 quarterback. I feel way better about Kyler than I did before. Because now you have a legitimate asset at quarterback, not just another guy. You have an actual asset at quarterback. You've got some top running backs. You've got a good tight end that I would expect to be a top 10 tight end this year. And what you lack in depth at wide receiver, you make up for with having 3 very solid players, specifically A.J. Brown. So ultimately for me, when looking at this team, I'm feeling pretty good. Now, what I'm wanting to do, though, is in these types of leagues, Teams want depth. Teams want depth. Right now, depth is not a huge concern for me for your team. Yes, would I love to have more depth? Sure. But right now, you don't have your first next year. So what I want to do is I want to say, hey, can I take Jerome Ford? Can I take maybe even J.K. Dobbins? Can I take Jalen Coker? Can I take Deontay Johnson? Can I take whoever it is? And I'm probably using my 216 as well. And I'm saying, what's one player that I can add to my roster that makes a difference? Like, what can I take all of that blah and give me one player that makes a difference for me? So is there a team that's currently like, look at some of the like 14th, 15th, 16th place team, Pete. Like, let's look at some of these bottom tier teams. Can I get an Alvin Kamara from this team? Perfect example. Can I get an Alvin Kamara from this team for Jerome Ford, 216, Jalen Coker, whatever else? Like, can I combine that into Alvin Kamara? Because Alvin Kamara actually makes a difference on my roster this year. Taylor, would you go that route as well, or are you worried about depth?
So I think what I would be trying to do is making sure that I'm not giving up I wouldn't want to give up a 3-for-1 for Kamara. I'd want to give up 3 and get Kamara and some things back. So if you wanted to just grab that team again, Pete, I saw they had Thielen. They have, not a lot else. Go down to their tight ends. We only have Ingram, really. Brenton Strange has some value now that Ingram is gone. Maybe I can get Brenton Strange and Thielen as well in a deal like that. If you have to pay extra to get these guys, it's not worth it. But in a league where there's 16 teams, I treat it similarly to the way I would a best ball, where I try to keep as many assets as I can on my team. Now, that said, if we go back to our team, Pete, with Brad's, there we go. So we have a couple of names on here that I think we can shed. I would be looking for guys to replace Devontae Walker, Mecole Hardman, Sione Vaki. I would literally go to your waiver and see who's out there that could score you points in week 3 if something went right, because those guys they're not going to do anything for you. There's no reason to have them on this team if there's someone out there like Austin Hooper who might actually start a week for you at the tight end spot. So I think there's a little bit of roster construction we can clean up here on the offensive side, getting rid of those guys. And I don't know on the defensive side how much you're looking to shed there, but any tier 3, tier 4 starters that you have, I would flip into tier 3, tier 4 offensive starters. Find the teams that did super poorly on defense last year and did okay on offense, and people who are looking to do better on defense, and shed your tier 3, tier 4 assets on that end. That would be, I think, between the roster construction and doing that, you would be set up to make a run again without having to make any major changes. And you can kind of shop around those defensive guys a little bit here and there. Unfortunately, we can't pull it up the same way that we would. But the biggest thing, just having seen what you had, is, I don't know if we're able to go. Yeah. So I think maybe looking to do something with your edges. I know that you get a lot of points, but like Granderson, Grenard, Chase Young. Can I get something for Chase Young instead of having him on my team? That's the kind of thing where, can I switch Chase Young into Cortland Sutton? That would be a much better move for this team if I could do something like that. So I don't know, Pete. We can go back to MFL, but I wanted to at least touch on the defensive aspect because you do have strengths there, but I would be looking to just basically do a 1-to-1 move into the offensive side with those guys.
Let
Yeah,
me throw
and
one more possibility real quick.
really
So-
fast, Garrett, could I cut you off? On the last place team up with the twist, there are a couple defensive players that are vets that could help you out a little bit just depth wise. So I would keep an eye on that as well.
Okay. Looking, I mentioned Kyler Murray earlier on. Looking at the situation with our team trying to win it again this year, part of the value of a Kyler Murray is that he is still relatively young. I would also be open to a team potentially if they're like, I want to get younger at quarterback. Could I get something Kyler Murray, or could I get something plus for Kyler Murray? Like one of the teams I saw had Dak Prescott that was down pretty low. Could I trade Kyler Murray and get Dak Prescott plus? Could I get a Matthew Stafford plus? Could I get a Jared Goff plus? Could I get are there teams right now that don't have super exciting starting quarterbacks, especially if they're older guys? And could I upgrade them into something else? Like that would be another route that I would Brock Purdy plus would be another one that I'd be open to. Those would be the names that I would look at and just see is there a deal to be made there? Because this team's wanting to get a little bit younger. Now Purdy is obviously younger than Murray, so that one might not work as well. But the Staffords, because Stafford could still win you a ship in a 16-team league with Jonathan Taylor and AJ Brown in a stud defense. Like he could still win you a ship. Jared Goff can still win you a ship. Dak Prescott can still win you a ship. Dak Prescott might outscore Kyler Murray even.
I would love to trade Kyler Murray for Dak Prescott plus.
That would be my favorite move personally. And if I remember right, one of the lowest tier teams had Dak Prescott. I don't remember which team it was.
Let's see.
Yeah,
Last one. How important is having a backup quarterback to you in this league? Because he doesn't have anyone other than Kyler Murray on his team.
I think
and Kirk Cousins, but
I think at this point you are kind of in the mode of I'm all in. No risk it, no biscuit. Like it's gonna suck if it happens and it'll completely derail your season. And then maybe you look to trade a 26 second and get somebody that can fill the gap for the year. But I think right now we're gonna play it a little bit fast and loose, a little more Russian roulette. So here's an idea. Would you do this? Would you trade Kyler Murray and J.K. Dobbins for Alvin Kamara and Dak Prescott?
Yes, I would. I honestly, Garrett, I don't see Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray in a one quarterback league as being different at all. Like they're in the same tier. I'm just moving. It's a plateau at that point, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to tear down from Dak and get a Kamara. That team doesn't happen to have any other really solid starters, so that's kind of the only thing. And I would just say to them hey, Dak and Kamara for Kyler, what do you think? And they say no, not enough. I'd say, well, what's enough? What do you need then? Because that 216 isn't doing you any good. Send the 216 and Kyler and get Kamara
and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah. The thing is, you're going to be paying $1.10 for every trade because people know that you've won the last 2 years. So anytime you want to go out and make a deal, chances are people are going to expect you to pay more than what you actually have to. And so if you lose Kyler, you're going to have to pay a second plus for a quarterback that people would normally only pay a second for. And that's just where you're at. And I think as long as you understand that going to the table when you are making your trades, you understand that I'm not sneaking anything past anyone, you're fine. You have plenty of players between the defensive side and offensive side to fill in if someone gets hurt. I would love to get a different veteran option than Zay Flowers in case things don't go well, or Brandon Ayuk in case things don't go well. If you need to start 3 receivers, I think that's why I mentioned
he's got Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen might be a nice little throw-in.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I mentioned Thielen. I mentioned Sutton. Go get a guy who doesn't have a huge dynasty floor and you know you're paying almost nothing for him, maybe DeAndre Hopkins. Like, can you go out and just get someone so that they're a warm body in the event that something goes wrong? You can at least get 6 to 10 points out of someone. Like, that's the one move I would like, is to get a wide receiver, but you can do that so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, I know it was a little unconventional because we had to bounce back and forth. Hopefully this gives you some good ideas of where to take your team. But also, congratulations on back-to-back ships in a 16-team league. That's freaking tough. Like, that's baller. So, well done, Brad. Absolutely. All right, so that is our final roster review. That is our last one. Now, I will say this. I am willing to stay on a little longer, but I am giving us a 5-minute timer. I'm giving us a 5-minute timer. If you want the show to continue on, I'll answer like a trade question in the chat or something like that. But if you want the show to go on more than 5 minutes, submit a question for a roster review. The logo, the QR code is right there in the upper right-hand corner. If not, that's okay. I get more of my afternoon. So we have like 1 or 2 spots available still that we would normally do. So we do have a couple available, but I'm good wrapping it up here. But we'll do one last chat question while I give you guys a little bit of time to go ahead and scan that code if you want to get 1 or 2 last teams in. Pete, go ahead.
Also, let's say that if you do the $3 trade question option, that still extends the show a little bit. Shall we?
I'm fine with that. We'll do the $3 trade questions live on the air. So those will be automatic live on the air if you do them while we're still live.
Yep. So those will be if you look at the submit a question, if you go follow the link, if you do the $3 option, we will ask it on air and answer it.
Oh, look at that. We're getting scanned. We're getting scanned. We'll see what happens here. All right. As we let that person have a few minutes to kind of get things situated and organized, we've got Einstein.
He's back.
I feel really dumb.
Somehow Einstein returned.
Einstein. That makes sense. All right, Einstein. I just traded Wilson. I'm assuming that's Garrett Wilson for Jameson Williams, 2-1, and a 2026 first in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium. Taylor, would you rather have Jameson Williams, the 201, and a 26 first, or would you rather have Garrett Wilson?
I'm giving up 1. I'm getting 3. I like the 26 first in a deal for Wilson. The 201 is about as good of a throw-in as you can get. The problem for me is that Jameson Williams, without Ben Johnson, on a team that now has fully developed their running back tandem, and just having Laporta in year 3, like, I know Williams has been going off, getting up, whatever you want to use for terminology, but I'm not as big of a fan of getting him in a deal as I would with like a Jalen Waddle type, or like if I could have gotten Rashee Rice, someone with a bigger path to wide receiver 1 status. I don't hate it. I think getting the 201 and the 26 first is smart. I'm not as sold on Jameson Williams, so if I was in this deal, I'd probably be happier to get Garrett Wilson, but I think there's a really good shot that 201 and the 2026 first could, either by choice of picking or trading away on the clock, could definitely net you better dynasty value in the long run than what you had to give up in this trade. So you can win this trade. I don't think right out the gates that I would consider it a slam dunk.
I think that was perfect analysis, honestly. That's almost exactly how I would feel about it as well. It's not my favorite move personally, but you are getting a good package of assets with some upside, so that is nice. But personally, I would value Garrett Wilson just a little bit higher than those package of assets. Let's see. T-Bird says Superflex 10-team PPR league. Should I trade Baker for Rashee straight up? If honestly, this is a little interesting, because if this was a 12-teamer, I would have said no. I would have said I would rather have Baker Mayfield. But quarterback assets are not as difficult to acquire in a 10-team league, whereas getting potentially elite upside assets, and specifically starting assets, is a higher priority for me. So for me, since it's 10-team, I think I would rather Rashee Rice because of the potential upside there, and it's not as hard to recoup the loss of Baker in a 10-team as it would be in a 12. Taylor, seemed like you agreed.
Yeah, I think of these trades a lot of times as though it's like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. Now, granted, you want the values to be balanced, but right now, Baker is at his highest value that he's been at in a long time. And Rashee Rice is still at the lowest value. So what you're doing is you're trading on a seesaw where you're trading the highest for the lowest. Chances are that's going to balance out at some point, which means that dynasty value that started here is actually going to end up more like that. So I think that that's a smart choice. I think getting rid of Baker for a young wide receiver in a 10 team is the way to go.
Keith, 1 quarterback, 10-man league, have Purdy, Kyler, and Fields. Burrow is on the block. Is Zay Flowers enough to get it done? Zay Flowers is my 5th best wide receiver behind Chase, JJ, Higgins, and Jameson Williams. Ooh, 1 quarterback. So while I think Zay Flowers could and maybe even should be enough to get it done, do I really want to give myself my 4th starting quarterback in a league? That's where this is tricky. I would much rather trade for Joe Burrow and give up Kyler or Purdy as well, and then have to give a smaller asset than rather give a bigger asset to do it by itself. Now, that might not be an option. This guy might say, I do not want another quarterback. I'm not taking one.
1 minute warning.
1 minute warning. You guys got to get it in if you want to get another trade discussion or anything on the show, roster review. So that being said, I don't know if the points you're going to get from Joe Burrow upgrading from the, you can kind of play the matchup game with Purdy, Kyler, and Fields depending on the week. Like, is he going to really outscore all 3 of those guys by that much where it's worth it to give up your 5th receiver? I don't know. I get it. If everything else is perfect, then sure. Oh, he said the Burrow manager has Jaden Daniels, so he's probably not wanting another quarterback. If everything else on your team is perfect and you just need that little bump, then sure. But otherwise, I don't love it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go shopping and you see something that's really nice is on sale. You're like, oh, I could use that somehow, some way. Like, that's a great deal. I really want to capitalize on that. But the truth is, sometimes you just don't need that item. And I think this is one of those cases where, like, if Zay's enough to get it done, that's great. But in this roster, I think you're smarter to keep that value at the wide receiver position. If you can't move one of those quarterbacks in the deal. So, pass.
All right. Well, guys, that wraps up the show for today. Dynasty Roster Rescue brought to you by Dynasty Nerds. Genuinely appreciate your guys' time hanging out with us, submitting rosters. I had a blast. Hopefully you guys had fun as well. Taylor, anything you want to ask or tell the folks? I guess you could ask, but tell the folks before you get out of here.
Well, we have a lot of the rookie profiles coming out on the website. We had 8 more come out over the weekend. So if you guys are in the hunt to get the inside scoop on guys like Omarion Hampton, Colston Loveland, Matthew Golden, those types of names, we have their profiles coming out, or I should say they're out with some all-22 footage. The other thing I just want to plug is that we had our most recent mock draft come out, and we've got lots and lots of content in there. So if anyone is looking to see where they might be able to get some of these guys and they don't have our tools quite yet to do their own mocks with, then that's probably your best option.
Absolutely. Pete, anything for you, my guy?
Do you guys want a story?
Yes.
Okay. So, fun fact. My first job that I tried to do was a photographer. I wanted to be a photographer, right?
Okay.
So, I was hanging out with my future wife. This wasn't even a date, but I was taking pictures. I was being all artistic-y. But I was like, man, I really need to like figure out how to get connected. This is like Peter, like 18, 19. Okay. I got no connections, etc. I don't know anyone to ask questions to or anything. So I was under this bridge, right, in Portland, Oregon. Okay. This guy drives up in a Rolls Royce, and he starts asking me questions about photography, and I'm like, we start yakking. It's like, are you a professional photographer? And he was like, yes, I have been one for like 10 years. And he was like, would you like to shoot a wedding with me? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do this. So it was like a little bit like a week after that. You know, he had a website and everything, so it was kind of legit. And so I show up to the wedding, super nice venue, right? Super, super nervous because this was my first ever, like I had a cheapo camera, all this stuff. And this guy's posing was kind of sometimes what you would say potentially risque, a little bit. And so his posing idea was, so he was taking a picture, bride and groom, and like I would be at kind of an inappropriate angle below. This is not like, so I had my eyes closed and everything, and he was just telling me, like, he was walking me through the pose, and I didn't put two and two together that this is what we're doing. And it was like, okay, get on the ground now, point the camera. And I was just like, I realized, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was getting so flustered, I didn't realize I was actually taking pictures the whole time, and that my camera shutter was super loud. And so everyone just kind of like looked at me and like, why are you actually taking pictures where you were? And I was like, oh, whoops. I didn't mean to.
I'm very confused.
Okay.
You supposed to?
So it was supposed to look like I was being a scandalous photographer, but I wasn't supposed to be one. It was a pose. It was the worst. It was probably, I'll see if I can find the picture because it's actually kind of funny, and it's not like inappropriate or anything. But like I wasn't supposed to be taking a picture, and it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Anyway, this was a super long, confusing story, and I apologize. But anyway, showed up to a guy's wedding to second for him after meeting him under a bridge, and bad, funny stuff happens. Anyway, yikes.
I appreciate you sharing.
That's why you're a gem.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Anyway.
All right. Well, for the rest of you guys, appreciate you guys tuning in, hanging out with us. We will see you again on Wednesday. Make sure to get your questions in before time runs out. We'll see you next week.
See ya.